There's a moment that happens before you label it, before you decide you're stressed, before you tell yourself you're late, before you even reach for your phone. It's that half second when everything is already moving, but you haven't stepped into it yet. Most of the time we miss it. We arrive after the fact, already thinking, already reacting, already inside the noise, trying to manage it. Nothing dramatic is happening. You're just driving, or standing in line, or listening to someone talk while part of you is somewhere else. Life is moving, and you're moving with it, but something feels slightly off. Not wrong, just unsettled. This video isn't here to slow your life down, or to make it quieter, or to offer a better strategy for handling chaos. It's here to notice something more subtle. Where you tend to stand while everything else keeps moving. If you stay with this, not rushing to understand, there's a chance you'll recognize that you've been very active, very capable, very functional, and still slightly misplaced. This isn't something to fix, it's something to notice. And noticing it takes a different kind of attention than we're used to bringing. Have you noticed how quickly the body tightens when something feels uncertain? An email comes in, no context. Before you think anything through, the jaw sets, breath shortens. The mind starts running scenarios. Not because you enjoy it, because somewhere inside, there's a sense that if you don't step in immediately, something might slip. Control doesn't usually arrive as a desire for power, it arrives as responsibility. You keep track, you plan ahead, you replay conversations on the drive home, just to make sure nothing was missed. From the outside, this looks like competence, and often, it is. At work, this habit gets rewarded, in families, it gets relied on, in yourself, it feels necessary. So the question isn't, why am I like this? A quieter question sits underneath, what would actually happen if I didn't stay so close to everything that moves? Not in theory, right now, in a small moment. Notice how the impulse to manage shows up before any real problem does, almost like a reflex, almost like it learned this a long time ago. And maybe it did. There's nothing wrong with the instinct. It's kept things together. It's helped you function. But there's something worth seeing here. The effort to stay in control often comes from standing exactly where things shake the most. That doesn't mean stepping away from life. It just raises another question, one we don't usually pause long enough to ask. Is the strain coming from what's happening, or from where I'm standing while it happens? Have you ever noticed how full a normal day already is before anything goes wrong? The calendar is tight, messages stack up, someone needs an answer, someone else needs reassurance. Even when nothing urgent is happening, attention stays slightly leaned forward, as if something important might happen any second. Think about how you walk through a grocery store, eyes scanning, mind planning the next stop, body moving before you fully arrive. Or how you listen in a meeting, half with the speaker, half rehearsing what you'll say next, or wondering how this is landing. None of this feels extreme, it feels normal, responsible, adult. And that's the point. This way of living isn't an accident. It's where life quietly trains you to stand, out where feedback is immediate, where reactions matter, where speed looks like care. The phone vibrates. You check it without deciding, a thought pops up. You follow it without noticing. Everything keeps pulling attention outward, not aggressively, just consistently. And after a while, it can feel like this is where you live, at the edge of things, where movement is constant. Not because you chose it, but because nothing asked you not to. And maybe that's worth sitting with for a moment, not to change it, just to see it clearly. If this is the place you've been standing, what else might be possible from somewhere a little closer in? What if the question isn't how to calm things down, but where you're standing while they move? Picture a wheel, not as an idea, as something you've actually seen. A bike passing by, a a car rolling through an intersection. The edge spins fast. You can almost feel it buzzing. Every bump in the road shows up there. But the center, the very middle, it turns too. And yet, it doesn't shake the same way. Here's the strange part. Both places are part of the same wheel. Neither is outside the motion. Nothing has to stop. So when life speeds up, when a day gets crowded, when emotions surge, the question quietly changes. Not, how do I make this go away? But, from where am I experiencing this? Because the road can be rough, curves, stops, unexpected turns. And still, something moves the entire distance without being thrown around by every inch of it. You don't have to imagine becoming different, or withdrawing, or floating above life. Just notice this movement feels very different depending on where you're located inside it. That difference isn't dramatic, it's subtle, easy to overlook. And once you sense it, you may realize you've been much closer to one place than you thought. Have you noticed how quickly, I get it, shows up? Someone explains something, you nod, you can repeat it back, it makes sense. And yet, later, in the middle of an ordinary moment, you're right back where you started. Take something simple, standing in the shower, warm water, steam, for a few seconds you're just there. Then the mind steps in, planning, remembering, replaying a conversation from yesterday. You understand the idea of being present, you've heard it, you agree with it. But notice the difference. Those few seconds, before thinking returned, didn't come from understanding anything. They came from being there. The same happens with emotions. You can explain why you're irritated. You know where it comes from. You might even explain it well. But explanation doesn't stop the tightening. It doesn't soften the body. It doesn't change how the moment feels. Understanding lives in words. Experience doesn't. And sometimes, knowing the words keeps you from noticing what's actually happening. This isn't a mistake. It's how the mind works. It likes clarity. It likes conclusions. But there's something quieter underneath. Something that doesn't need to be explained to be known. You may have touched it many times, briefly, in between thoughts, before labeling anything. The question isn't how to hold on to it. Just this, what changes when you notice the difference between knowing about something and actually being there with it. Have you noticed how a feeling can take over an entire room, even though it's happening inside just one body? An offhand comment, a look that's hard to read, a silence that lasts a second too long. Suddenly the mood shifts, not just emotionally, physically. The chest tightens, the shoulders rise. The mind fills in gaps faster than facts arrive. It feels as if the feeling is the situation, as if everything now has the same tone. The same thing happens with roles, at work, at home, with friends. One moment you're simply responding, the next you're defending, performing, protecting an image you didn't realize you were holding. Nothing dramatic changes on the outside, but inside, everything gets heavier. What's interesting is this. The thoughts, the stories, the reactions all seem to demand full belief. They don't ask politely. They arrive with urgency, as if something essential is at stake. And maybe it feels that way because there's no clear place to stand while they move through. When there's no sense of center, every movement feels personal. Every shift feels like a threat or a verdict. This isn't about pushing feelings away, or stepping out of relationships, or becoming detached. It's about noticing how much weight a moment carries, depending on where you're experiencing it from. That weight can feel absolute until sometimes, without effort, it isn't. And that change doesn't announce itself, it just leaves a little more space behind. Have you noticed how quickly you disappear into what's happening? A conversation starts, you're there, listening. Then a word lands wrong or a tone shifts, and suddenly you're no longer just here. You're preparing a response, defending a position, replaying something from the past. The conversation continues, but your attention has moved. And yet, sometimes there's a different kind of moment. You're still listening, still responding. But there's a slight distance, not cold, not withdrawn. More like you haven't fallen in. The words come, reactions arise, but something stays put. You still care, you still engage, nothing is avoided. But the urgency softens. The need to fix or win eases a bit. It's subtle, so subtle it's easy to miss. Life doesn't pause for it. The moment doesn't announce. Now you're centered. It just feels less sticky, less heavy. You may have touched this without naming it, driving, walking, listening to music. Things move through, but they don't carry you with them. And if that's possible in small moments, it raises a quiet question. What would it be like to stay, even while everything else passes? Nothing needs to be added now. The day will continue, messages will arrive, thoughts will keep moving, just as they always have. What may be different is not what happens, but where it's happening from. There is a way of being present that doesn't slow life down, doesn't rise above it, doesn't step away. It stays while things pass. You don't have to hold on to this. In fact, you can't. It shows up on its own, often when you're not looking for it. Maybe later today, in a very ordinary moment, you'll notice the body reacting, a thought forming, a feeling taking shape. Before naming it, before stepping in, just for an instant, there may be a sense of standing somewhere quieter, even as everything continues to move. If that moment comes, nothing needs to be done with it. Only one question can remain soft and unanswered. Where am I right now as this passes?